Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. You saw a clip at the top of the show for a movie that will be showing at this year's Salem Film Festival, which we are devoting most of this episode to this week. And the Salem Film Festival, which has been happening every year now for, gosh, what is it, 3, 4, 5 years? I can't remember, but it's been going on a few years now, is here upon us once again. It's October 15th through the 22nd at Salem Cinema, Grand Theater, and various locations around Salem. You can go to salemfilmfestival.com for more information. And you can also find out about some of the movies, just 4 out of like 46 features and 40 short films, something like that, more than like 80 films. So this is really just a sliver.
It's a huge undertaking.
Yes.
And
Yes.
We're
talking about something like 80 films. So we're not reviewing all those. We're reviewing 4 out of the 80 films that we'll be showing. But just to give you a little taste of what you might expect at this year's film festival.
It would be like a mini series if we reviewed all of those.
Yeah, and then we wouldn't get to go to the film festival and see
Yeah,
anything. So,
exactly.
And we have to make our appearances seen, being the movie celebrities of Salem.
The unofficial mascots?
Unofficial mascots?
Is that what it is?
I don't know that. I don't know about being a mascot. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Well.
So we'll move on to the first film from the Salem Film Festival, which is Harmony in Me, which is about a young sort of slacker in Austin, Texas, who just can't get over the recent breakup with his girlfriend. And it's unfortunate we're opening with this movie because this was actually my least favorite out of the 4 films we'll be reviewing. But and mainly it was because, to be honest, for me, the photography of a film is so key, and this film just had a very flat, sort of ugly digital look, which, in a documentary I can forgive a little bit, but in something like this I would have preferred it to not look like really bad TV, and it did, and that took away a lot for me.
I didn't mind the look of it so much. This is, and some people are really this will turn most people off, but it's kind of a Judd Apatow type movie. And I enjoyed that. There's a lot of, it's a very dry humor.
Yes.
Actually, this is the one I would like to see in the theater because I would like to experience this with a crowd because I think it would actually enhance the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I did enjoy this movie.
That's quite true.
I like this movie. And but it's a very dry, it's very deadpan. There are some moments that, I actually laughed out loud, and I'm watching it by myself, so that says an awful lot about it. There's some good characters in this one. There's actually Kevin Conaghan is in this. He was also in Wake Up Ron Burgundy. We were just talking about Anchorman before the show, and so I was really surprised to see him. And he's actually in the first film this director did also, which was A Registered Sex Offender, which sounds hilarious.
And it has a very, at first I thought the movie might have been shot in Portland at first, because the look of the character, sort of the indie rock hipness, reminded me of Portland. It's Austin, so it's close enough.
Well, this could be a Michael Cera movie. If they remade it and Hollywoodized it, they would just throw him in it.
They would throw him in the role. Yeah. Instead, they have this guy, Justin Rice, who's actually quite good, and he's an Austin musician, and he's in a popular indie rock band. And actually, a lot of the sort of the musical interludes I sort of enjoyed in the movie, and I didn't think. And the movie, it has a sort of a musical feeling. It's sort of episodic, and it kind of flows and meanders. And like I said, the look was the main thing that bothered me, and some of the sort of cheapish sets and things, which you have to forgive to a certain extent. There were 2 really funny scenes for me, and that was just watching it by myself. So maybe in the theater there'd be even more. But one was at the hospital, which is towards the end of the movie, when the ex shows up.
No, that is.
And there was something that he does, and that made me laugh out loud, which I thought was funny.
Yes.
But at one point I thought, his friends are so unlikable. All these people in his life, his family members, his relatives.
You can't help but feel kind of bad
It's
for
very
him,
misanthropic in a way.
Yeah,
though,
but I liked him, and so it immediately put me on his side, and so I was in his defense. And
but
the
he's
fact
pretty
that,
annoying too. He cannot get over this girl.
Well, but I didn't mind that. He wore the little locket and said, "This is the picture of the girl. She's breaking my heart," and I loved that line. That was really nice because that's true. It's not something that just your heart is broken. It still continues. It's still painful. It still hurts. And of course, when he gets to bump into her a couple of times and she returns the sweater, it's painful, but in a very funny way. And so that's hard. That kind of comedy is, it relies a lot on the actors. It relies a lot on the editing, not so much the look. So it worked for me, and I can recommend this one. And like I said, I would like to see this in a theater setting because I think with the right crowd and the right group, this movie would really
Well, I would
take
agree that
off.
comedies are always better seen in a crowd. I mean, you can watch the funniest movie by yourself, and it may not, especially if you're watching it for the first time like that, it may not be as funny. Yeah. Although there's some movies that you and I have watched, just the two of us, that we found unintentionally funny on occasion. But
there was ones that we saw in large crowds actually that were dramas that we found funny.
Very funny, yeah, like The Hunted, right? Yeah. So sometimes they're unintentionally funny, but this one was actually trying to be funny. So that's a good distinction to make.
And I did like the reason I call it the Judd Apatow touch was also because his brother was a very odd character, and seen on that
both
kind
of them.
And that kind of plays well with the Judd Apatow type thing. And so I think that was another thing that was really funny, and I enjoyed that part of it. So it had some really nice touches that people kind of come in and out of his life that we kind of get to spend a little bit of time with. We're very odd. It's a very odd movie. It's a different kind of humor, but I think that is something that's a little more mainstream now. So I think it'll play really well.
Very dry, that's for sure. Yeah.
Alrighty. So moving on to the next movie, and I have to concentrate really hard to say the name of this next movie. It is Bass Ackwards. Yeah, there we go. This is directed by Linus Phillips. This is, I think it was the second feature here. This is a young man who's making a cross-country journey after a breakup with a married woman, decides to move in back with his parents. And wow, that sounds... anyway.
Sounds familiar to you, does it?
Something like that. Gosh. Anyway, so he travels across the country and meets very interesting people along the way. Now, this was the film that I had a hard time with. This is probably the one that I like. Which is interesting because
this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, see, this is the one I like the least of the group because the first half of it, as we were talking just a minute ago, is just didn't work for me. I really have a hard time with characters in movies who just don't have a plan. It's not that I don't mind there's not a structure in the film, it's just when they just don't have a plan and he's just like, yeah, I guess I'll kind of go, and I'm like, get your life together, put a plan together, you got to figure out what you're going to do. What are you going to do when you get there? I know that everyone's like me, but so that's my issue.
There's a whole generation of young men who are exactly like this, but that's a whole other sociological issue going on in the United States right now.
And that's what Woodshop is for, back in middle school. But so he travels across the country, and there are some characters that I really enjoyed, including the gentleman that just, hey, open up, he was in the van, I want to just sit down for a little while, and ends up taking him on the journey. I enjoyed him. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the gas attendant, which was very funny. And then there's just a few others that just didn't work enough for me. It kind of saves itself. The second half I like better.
Attendant. Now, which one was he?
When he went to go get gas at the gas station. He was the guy behind the counter. That makes him
the one that made him do the Christopher Walken?
Yeah.
Impression. Yeah. If you've ever wanted to see someone do a Christopher Walken impression in Lithuanian, this is the movie for you.
Is that what it was?
Yes, he was speaking Lithuanian, and it was Christopher Walken. I thought it was rather funny. It was very random. There's a lot of random moments in this movie. You know, it's interesting about this movie. The first 20 minutes or so, I thought, I'm not going to be able to make it through this movie. So this is one to give a chance, because I actually really disliked the main character. Linus Phillips is the director and the writer.
He looks like Itchy the Killer.
And he's also the star of the movie. So it's the director, writer, and star. Yeah. However, that said, the film started to grow on me after a while, and it's partially because even though his character is very socially awkward, he gives socially awkward a whole new definition. If you look in the dictionary under socially awkward, this guy's...
You're going to see the definition of socially awkward.
What?
Oh, never mind.
You're going to see a photo of this guy. So for a while it was a little painful, but once he got on the road and he started to meet the different characters and he started to explore a little bit more about...
And that little van.
Which was very funny at times. And then he shot, and apparently, you know, from what I read about the movie, they had a plan and they had a script. It wasn't totally improvised a la Cassavetes, but when they went to certain locations, they did sort of just let things happen. Yeah. So you see people walking by, like there was a scene where some kids walk by and they throw something at him. That was all they just did that because they wanted to throw something at his weird-looking car, and they just let that happen.
The people going by that.
And I like that aspect. This movie reminded me a lot of the movies like Wendy and Lucy and Old Joy by filmmaker Kelly Reichardt, who I thought Wendy and Lucy was a great film with Michelle Williams, and she's going to be in another film with her again this year. Yeah. But those are all very Portland-centric films about these sort of young, lost generation, you know, Generation Yers who are lost and ambling out in the... Now, her films are much better because they have a real sense of atmosphere, but what I liked about this film is that I thought the photography, much so more than the other films that we're reviewing, was really good. It didn't look like bad, sterile digital. It had a really warm look to it.
Videotape.
No, No, it didn't look like that at all, actually. I thought it had a nice, warm, sort of film-like look. I don't think it was shot on film.
He just has a very interesting look. Like
lighting.
I said, he looks like Itchy the Killer, and it just wouldn't be someone I would, you know, let stay home with my kids or something, or hang out with my children. He kind of had a weird energy, which worked for most of the movie in terms of the comedy, but in some of it was just... Yeah.
And partially it may depend on whether you know people like this or not, which I actually do know.
Oh, I'm not about that for a moment.
Yeah, and there's a scene in the bar where he's trying to, I mean, he's so well-meaning with women. It's not that he's creepy when he's trying to talk to them, but he's very clueless. And there's a scene where the woman he's talking to has this look of desperation on her face, like trying to get out of the conversation.
Yeah.
It is very painful at times, but I thought very human and quite poignant. And by the end, I thought the ending was actually it wrapped up nicely. I like a good ending on a film, and I thought it had a very satisfying ending. So I can recommend it.
Huh. I mean, not so much. No,
yeah,
I didn't.
You didn't like the ending
I didn't
so
necessarily. Well, no, I just can't necessarily recommend the movie, but as
I
much.
can really recommend it, and I think it would look. And unlike some of these other films, this one would be one to see on the big screen because it does have a really nice look to it. Yeah. So it won't be for everybody. I will say that. So.
No. But that's good. A nice little divide there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we disagree on the first two. So what's coming up next? Tension. We were supposed to fight more. The audience says we're supposed to fight. We're supposed to come to blows.
Now, is there people watching this show? Does this video go somewhere? I thought this was just more like a King of Comedy. It was just my mom is upstairs. No.
You didn't realize that they're secretly taping.
I didn't realize that. No, other people behind us.
You don't ever go on YouTube, apparently.
No, I YouTube.